Hey there, welcome back to another video. This time around, it is my review of the 1997 dark comedy with a little bit of action, Grosse Pointe Blank. Now, this is, in my opinion, a really underrated gem of a movie. I know it made a little bit of a profit when it came out, and it did get some critical acclaim, and it does have some pretty high profile fans. In fact, Ryan Reynolds really likes this film. Apparently, it's one of his favorites. But I don't think it's talked about nearly enough, and it's stuck on a bare bones Blu-ray that has zero special features whatsoever. And I think this film deserves better than that. I think this is a great movie. Now, before I get around to sharing more of my thoughts on this film, I would like to give a special shout out to Andrew for requesting yet another review. And if there is another film, TV show, or topic that you would like to see me discuss in the future, feel free to donate to either my PayPal, my Patreon, or my Cash App. The link to all three is in the video description down below, and I will try to get to your requests as soon as I possibly can. Now, Grosse Pointe Blank is directed by George Armitage. And prior to this, he directed films like Miami Blues. And to me, this is his best film. I think his direction in this is really strong, really solid, very sturdy, very efficient, very effective. Does a good job capturing the right tone. This is a film that's kind of quirky, but also pretty dark. And that can be kind of a hard movie to nail visually, but I definitely feel that he manages to accomplish that feat rather well. And it also is a film that has a fair amount of action in it. Like there's a lot of shootouts and explosions, and he shoots those sequences just as well as any of the other smaller, less bombastic moments in the movie. There's a lot of elements of this that are very much straight out of a black comedy, and that requires a certain amount of timing when it comes to the visuals or when it comes to the comedic sequences. And I definitely feel that Armitage did a genuinely amazing job for the most part in terms of really getting that timing down and also getting some really good performances out of his entire cast, which features a lot of really talented performers. This is, in my opinion, not necessarily the kind of film visually that is full of like vivid or mesmerizing visuals, but it's a film though directing wise that still works and is still uh in my opinion pretty great for the kind of film that this is trying to be. You can definitely see that there's a little bit of a sense of risk, and definitely do see some more unique kind of camera angles at points, or different types of camera work or techniques in general that George utilizes in this film to really make it not just seem like your average comedy. So yeah, I genuinely feel that George did a grand job directing Grosse Pointe Blank. Now, Grosse Pointe Blank is written by a slew of writers. Like, there's a lot of writers that are listed for this script, including one that isn't even credited. So you have Tom Yankowitz, who also wrote the story that the film is based on. You have D.V. Dave Vicentis, Steve Pink, and John Cusack. But you also have George Armitage, the director, who did uncredited rewrites. In fact, he did a lot of writing for this film. Him and John Cusack are very heavily responsible for the final draft of the script that was ultimately used for shooting. This script to me is very clever, it's very witty, and it's genuinely endearing as well. Like there's actually a decent amount of heart to it, despite how cynical it can be. And this is just a great idea. I've always felt that the concept for Grosse Pointe Blank is really unique and original, and that really goes a long way when it comes to this film. It deals with this hitman named Martin Blank who decides to uh, wind up going to his high school reunion, his 10-year high school reunion. Now, initially, he wasn't planning on going, but he gets hired to kill somebody who happens to be in the same vicinity as his high school reunion. So he decides to just go anyway. And when he goes back home, he winds up rekindling this romance with an old flame of his, this girlfriend that he had in high school, and really starts to shift his priorities, and he starts to not really think about the hit, and is trying to do a different kind of hit instead. He's trying to hit it with his old girlfriend, with his ex. And he's also being tracked by these government officials who work for the NSA, and he's also being hunted down by this freelance hitman who's pissed at him because, or he was hired to kill him because Blank accidentally blew up some diplomat's dog. And you have this other hitman who is also on Blank's trail, who is wanting. He wants Blank's head because Blank refused to join his hitman union, and this guy's name is Grocer, and so he not only has to deal with the drama of this high school reunion and meeting old high school classmates, and catching up in awkward ways, but also trying to patch things up with his ex. But now he's also got a lot of other stuff going on with these various hitmen who are trying to take him out. So it leads to a lot of genuinely good moments of tension, and there's a certain sense of relatability to it when it comes to going back home and the whole idea of going to a high school reunion and seeing the same people that you went to high school with, and the cringe that's associated with that. And this is also a really clever script when it comes to the satire, because in a lot of ways it's a very satirical take on the American dream and American values. With the small town guy who left his small town in Michigan, wound up in the military, was handpicked to be a part of a special program of hitmen that were used by the military. Then he decided to go freelance, and now he's back home. And the various different aspects of his life are colliding at once. And it's funny, but I wouldn't say it's like laugh out loud hilarious a lot of the time. It's not that kind of comedy. There's definitely some really fun and witty lines in it. But it's not a film that I think is gonna like really cause you to be laughing till your sides hurt. It's not really that kind of film. And the action in it is surprisingly great for a comedy. It's a comedy, but the action is actually up there with some of the better indie action films from around this time period. There's a lot of shootouts. There's even a convenience store that explodes into a giant ball of fire, and there's some fisticuffs. There's a fight with Benny the Jet, with John Cusack when he fights him in the hall of his old high school and kills a guy with a pen. And there's a climactic shootout with Blank and Grocer that's really fun and exciting. So there's a lot of action in this, surprisingly enough, for the kind of movie that it is. But there's also, some genuinely funny bits as well, uh, that I think if you're a fan of dark comedy, there's definitely a lot of moments in this that I think are gonna make you chuckle. But it's not just comedy and action, there's also a nice, cute, and heartwarming romance in there too with, Blank and his, ex, uh, and, their whole, arc and subplot throughout the movie, Debbie and Martin. I will say that there's really not a lot about it that is particularly unpredictable or really comes out of left field. A lot of it is kind of typical in that regard. You could kind of see some of the stuff coming, like, oh, the person that he's targeted with hitting is Debbie's dad. Like, you could kind of see that coming because it ties in with a lot of the aspects of the story, but I still felt it worked because it gave Martin a reason to step back into Debbie's life after they had their falling out, after they reunited and they went to the reunion, but then she found out that he's a hitman and thinks he's a psycho and doesn't want anything to do with him, but he winds up back in her life again because he decides to not take up the contract and take out her father, and instead he decides to save her father from being killed by Grocer, and that's what leads to the finale at the end. But I will admit that it's a bit convenient, the climax and the way that things ultimately unfold with Blank and Grocer and Debbie's dad. Like, I'm okay with the the hit being Debbie's dad, but Grocer being there and then almost hitting him, but he doesn't succeed because Blank just shows up just in time to save him. Like, yeah, that's a bit convenient to say the least. But a lot of the fun, a lot of the enjoyment, a lot of the best aspects of this script are really a lot of the sarcastic, sardonic lines that are said by Blank, either to himself or to other people or to his therapist. And just the way Blank interacts with his former classmates, and also the way that he reacts to what's going on in his former hometown. Like, he goes to where his house should be, but now it's a convenience store, and he's talking to the clerk who works there, and he's like, "What are you doing here?" So there's a lot of moments like that that I think are really fun and definitely do bring a smile to your face. And then the action just is a nice amount of punch to of the script. And I actually really like the ending in terms of it not really being like the most typical happy ending. Blank does propose to Debbie, but she doesn't really agree right away. She just says, "I'll think about it." And they do drive off together and they leave the town at the end, but they don't get married. And you don't really get like a full idea of what their relationship is going to be going forward. So I like that it ended in a way that was surprisingly open ended, and yeah, they're back together, but it's not something that is too sappy. So I did appreciate that, and it could have definitely gone in a sappier route, but it didn't, and that was the right choice because this is a screenplay that doesn't really have a lot of those sappy moments. It's usually quite the opposite most of the time. There are some, you could say, some sappy stuff with Martin and Debbie, but that's kept to a minimum. Most of the time, it's pretty edgy. It's pretty dark and kind of subversive at points. I mean, there's a whole bit where it's a repeated gag actually when Martin says truthfully what he does for a living to people around him. He says that he's a professional hitman or a hired killer, and people don't take him seriously. Or if they do, it's not. They don't even make it that big of a deal. Like this moment between Martin and Debbie's dad, where he's talking to Debbie's father, and he's all like, "Yeah, I'm a professional hitman." And then the father's like, "Oh, good. That's a growth industry." Yeah. So, I mean, there are some great bits in this in terms of the satire or the black comedy. So yeah, I think the characterization is decent enough as well. I could see why some people might argue that, Debbie isn't really that fleshed out of a character. It seems like she's stuck in the past, just waiting for this guy to come back. He comes back into her life and then basically falls for him all over again pretty easily. And with Martin, he's neurotic and he's got these other issues and stuff like that, and it he doesn't really seem like. I guess you could argue maybe he doesn't fully work out his issues by the end. He just kind of puts them to the wayside and uses his newly rekindled relationship with Debbie as a way to just kind of cope with whatever his issues are. Um, but it still works for me. I guess I could see maybe a little bit more with some of the other hitmen, like a little bit more about Grocer and how he got into the business and what's going on with him, and maybe a little bit more with Marcella and Martin and how they met and how they were able to collaborate with one another and why their relationship is so special and why he bothered to leave money behind for her. Stuff like that would have helped, I think, the script to become a little bit more uh, dynamic as a whole. But it also is something that would have affected the quicker pace of the movie. So I don't really necessarily feel it was something that was 100% necessary, but I think it could have been nice, and maybe you could have trimmed some other things down in order to make more room for it. Another thing I was thinking about, like maybe you could have had like a flashback early on with Martin and your cast of characters when they were in high school, and then flash forward to present day. Maybe you could have done something like that that could have added a little bit more to the script. But they try to do that with the name tags that everybody has. So there's a little bit of that, but it could have helped in terms of enabling you to be able to connect a little bit more with the movie on a deeper level. Um, but as it is, still works. The NSA agent guys, that also is something that I think really could have been handled better. That is probably arguably the weakest aspect of the script for me because I don't really understand their importance. I don't really know why they're there. I keep getting confused and wondering whether or not they were hired by Grocer. Maybe they were, but okay. Why aren't they trying to bust this guy? What is their payment? What is their whole reason for doing any of this? Just because they were hired by Grocer? Like it just I don't know, it just felt like it was a little bit of an afterthought when it comes to the NSA guys being there, and they didn't really have that much to do, and they didn't really add that much. They weren't funny. They didn't have a lot of funny dialogue. They didn't have a good rapport with one another. Just felt like they were just kind of there. Would have rather had more scenes with Grocer, and maybe maybe a few more hitmen, like different types of hitmen other than just the Benny the Jet guy. play Felix La Poubelle, because NSA guys are boring. Uh, it seemed like, okay, we got Dan Aykroyd. He's quirky and weird and out there and really fun to watch as a hitman. And then we have the Poubelle, and then we have boring NSA guys. Like it just kind of felt like they really didn't fit. But other than those two characters, I think for the most part, the majority of the other characters are pretty well written. One other character I wanted to point out is um, Martin's childhood friend, Paul. Like, I think he had some fun moments, and there were some genuinely enjoyable lines from him or exchanges that he had with Martin. And the script did a good job making you buy that these two were at once they were once friends. At one point in time, they were close with one another. Similar to, the romance between Debbie and Martin. Like, the script did a good job making you buy that there were some real feelings there and they haven't completely dissipated. So, there's also a surprising amount of realism at points of this script that I wanted to point out as well. Despite it being a little over the top at points, you have scenes like when Martin goes to visit his mom, and his mom is in a home, and she's got Alzheimer's, and forgets who he is near the end of the meeting. Like, there's some surprising bits of realism here that help ground the movie despite the moments of over the top action or satire. Now, the cast in this film is great, if you ask me. I mean, John Cusack is so charming, so charismatic, so much fun to watch as Martin. His deadpan in this is some of the best that you'll ever see, and he was surprisingly capable when it comes to the action scenes too. This is honestly one of my favorite John Cusack performances. He's cool, he's suave, he's a bit of a badass. You really enjoy watching him interact with the entire cast. You root for him to get back with his girl. Like, this is definitely one of his most memorable and one of his strongest performances. And I'm glad that he considers this to be one of his favorite roles because it is one of his best. And you can definitely tell that he was very up for this. He was really into the character, into the role. And as a result, it's a very engaging performance to watch. Minnie Driver is also fun in her own way as Debbie. She had her own snark that matched John's well, and the two of them were a cute couple. Alan Arkin has a fun little cameo as Martin's therapist. Dan Aykroyd, he steals pretty much every scene that he's in as Grocer. This is one of my favorite Dan Aykroyd performances because it's Dan playing a role that's outside of the box. It shows Dan's range. It shows that, oh, he can actually believably play a hitman. Yeah, a hitman who has the kind of Dan Aykroyd isms, who acts the way that Dan Aykroyd does, kind of whacked out and weird. But when it comes to him carrying the guns and doing the action stuff and being intimidating, it actually works. So I really loved seeing Dan play this character, and it was really cool to see him play something that was so different compared to what you normally see Dan play. Uh, uh, Joan Cusack, she plays Marcella. She was a fun addition to the cast. She had some good back and forth with John. Jeremy Piven was great as Paul, Martin's childhood friend. Hank Azaria and Mitchell Ryan. Well, not Mitchell Ryan. It's Hank Azaria and K. Todd Freeman. the NSA agents, I'm not blaming the actors. They had crappy roles. There's not a whole lot they could do with the craft that they were given. But Mitchell Ryan, I liked as Mr. Newberry. Benny the Jet was a pretty intimidating presence and showed some skill with his martial arts, which is understandable because he's a martial arts expert. Like Benny the Jet, Euclides is a great talent when it comes to that. He actually trained John Cusack for this movie too. When it comes to Cusack's kickboxing that he utilized in the film, and you have some other actors and actresses that are also in this, like Michael Cudlitz, who plays Bob Distabello. Jenna Elfman has a small role as Tanya. Uh, but the main cast is John Cusack, Minnie Driver, Alan Arkin, Dan Aykroyd, Joan Cusack, Jeremy Piven, and all of them do some really good work in this film. The cinematography by Jamie Anderson, it's slick, but not too glossy. There's still a decent amount of grit to it, and there are still moments that make it feel like it's a more down to earth kind of movie, which is exactly what this film is trying to be, despite the explosions and the gunplay. It does have this sense of Americana and small town vibes, and I really do feel that the cinematography really does showcase that well. The editing by Brian Burden is definitely not a burden on the movie. Like, I think it works well with the film, helps make some of the action scenes a little bit more exciting. Same thing goes for some of the more energetic scenes throughout the movie. The music by Joe Strummer, I think it's actually a pretty I wouldn't say incredible, but I would say it's a pretty good score for the most part, by Strummer, who you might recognize as one of the band members of The Clash. And it's cool to see him do a film score, and I think he shows that he can handle that job rather well. But when it comes to music, the songs that they license for the film are definitely the most standout aspects of the film music wise. You got Guns N' Roses, "Live and Let Die." You've got Violent Femmes, "Blister in the Sun," which I kind of consider to be like the theme of this movie. And I think the makers of the film felt the same way because they used it numerous times throughout the film. I think it's the one licensed track that they used the most. Is you had it like halfway through the movie, and then you had it near the end. And they even, I think, played it during the first part of the end credits. So, yeah, I think a lot of ways they felt like that was the song that really fit the vibe of the movie and what they were trying to get out of it. And I think it really is a good fit. Bam, 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 bam. When I'm out walking, I strut my stuff, and I'm so strung out. I'm high as a kite, I just might stop to check you out. Let me go on, like I blister in the sun. Let me go on. Big hands, I know you're the one. Body and beats, I stain my sheets. I don't even know why. My girlfriend, she's at the end. She is starting to cry. Let me go on, like a blister in the sun. Let me go on. Big hands, I know you're the one. When I'm a walking, I strut my stuff, and I'm so strung out. I'm high as a kite, I just might stop to check you out. Let me go on, like a blister in the sun. Let me go on. Big hands, I know you're the one. It's a great song, And there's a lot of other really good songs in this. Under Pressure by David Bowie and Queen. I Can See Clearly Now by Johnny Nash. We Care a Lot by Faith No More, the song that was used for Dirty Jobs later on. The popular reality TV show. Absolute Beginners by The Jam. Let My Love Open the Door by Pete Townsend. Uh, yeah, Rudy Can't Fail by The Clash. Just a great soundtrack. And it was a huge hit too. Like the soundtrack album reached number 31 on the Billboard 200 chart when this film came out. So it was a hit. In fact, it was big enough there were two volumes. There was volume 1 and there was volume 2. So this is a hugely successful soundtrack. And it was well deserved if you ask me. A lot of great songs. It's just a great movie. Like I genuinely love Grosse Pointe Blank. It's just such a breath of fresh air. It's like one of the best combinations of like a rom-com and a dark comedy and an action film. Like there are three genres that you think wouldn't work at all together, but they blend together wonderfully with this film. So it's a good example of how you can really take a lot of risks and, try something completely out of the box and create something that is special and one of a kind and stands the test of time. But that's my thoughts on Grosse Pointe Blank. And as always, thanks for watching, and I'll see you later. See ya.